What martial art did you get started in, Les?
I suppose if I look back, the first thing I had an attempt at, I was very young. It was probably, I don't know if it was about 10 or even 12 at the time. And I go at Shotokan Karate. Um, that wasn't really where my kind of interest in martial arts came from, so I'll be honest. And it was before that, and it was really probably through following boxing on the television.
Yeah.
That was the main thing that, I mean, I used to love boxing, so that was a kind of probably the main thing that got me interested in any kind of martial art at all. I
Hmm.
mean, I know a lot of people would say, Bruce Lee movies and all the rest of that. That just wasn't me. It wasn't something that I really kind of latched onto. It was really through boxing.
Hmm.
And throughout my kind of whole life, I was really into watching the boxing. I went to quite a few fights. I mean, my big heroes were people like Nigel Benn. I went to
Hmm.
see him fight a couple of times. Which was a great. Saw him against Eubank, the second fight at Old Trafford. And I loved following it so much so that even I can remember actually, I was away with the army one time. I was on a course, and I set my alarm to get up at some daft time in the morning because I wanted to listen to it. It was on the radio. It was the kind of Sky that. I'm sure it was Marco Antonio Barrera fighting
Versus.
Nassim Hamid.
Oh, I remember that fight. Aye,
Yeah,
aye,
yeah. And I was a huge Marco Antonio Barrera fan, and I was so
yeah.
wanting him to win. So, I mean, I loved all those kind of fights. So that was probably the kind of start of the. Long before that, when I was younger, it was interesting. So
Hmm.
probably when I was younger, it was people like who was it then? It was people like Alan Minter.
Hmm.
Um, I had an interest in come on the television. You used to get that some of the fights on there. So it kind of went from there. Obviously, Jim Cannon.
Hmm.
Uh, and I had an interest, obviously, in this kind of older kind of Scottish fighters. Um, and it was that that got me interested in the martial arts more than the Shotokan Karate because I didn't really stick in it very long. I don't think I really kind of I don't
Hmm.
think I really got it. And then I would start to read about stuff, and I picked up magazines and kind of went from there, I suppose.
See that boxing era that you mentioned, where like Nigel Benn, Chris
Oh,
Eubank, that was like a golden age, I think, for
oh,
British boxing.
yeah, it was. I was into. I mean, I used to. I've got quite a nice collection of boxing programs. So I mean, I've even got. I've got the what do you call Marvelous Marvin Hagler
Hmm.
against Sugar Ray Leonard. I've got that program. I've got stuff from Marco Antonio Barrera. I've got Julio Cesar Chavez stuff. I mean, it was all those kind of people I really liked. I mean, I liked a huge kind of Pernell, whatever, could write off a lot.
Hmm.
Pernell Whitaker. I used to love Aaron the Hawk Pryor, as well as a lot of British fighters like Robbie Reagan,
Hmm.
and of course, what's his face? He used to live down the road. Ricky Burns, of course.
Ricky
Yeah,
Burns,
yeah,
aye, aye.
yeah, lovely guy. Met him a few times. Really nice
Hmm.
guy. Yeah, but I used to read Boom Boom Mancini, all these kind of people. I used to kind of follow it avidly.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of from that I suppose my interest in the martial arts kind of really came. Right, I can't really say it was the Shotokan Karate.
I think, like, for me at least, boxing is a true martial art.
Is yeah, it is. And that's what you and I've talked about before. When we
Hmm.
talk about martial arts, and then you bring in something like Systema or Krav Maga, and what you can say is, well, this is a bit different because in any martial art, you really get rules. Yeah.
Hmm.
Whereas in Systema and Krav Maga, there are no rules. It's about taking out the threat quickly, safely as possible, keep yourself and others you're with you safe. But
Hmm.
obviously, a lot more to it than that. But to me, they're very different because they're self-defense systems as opposed to martial art, which is rules.
So Krav Maga, then I'm quite interested
Mm.
in that. Where did you train Krav Maga?
Krav Maga, that was quite interesting. The Krav Maga thing came about. I mean, I remember when I showed you some of the articles I wrote for
Yeah.
fighters and combat stuff. And there used to be the odd things. It was really, shoot, the first time I seen it was like an advert in combat or something. And it wasn't long, and it just kind of started to come over to the UK, really.
Hmm.
And there's a friend of mine, Brendan Morris, who was a big Shotokan guy. I think, I don't know if he was a second dan. I remember Shotokan was his thing, really big into it. And him and a guy called Chris Vance, they found out about it. I thought, like, this is really interesting. I'll never forget Brendan saying to me, he said, Les, I've eventually found a proper use for my black belt. And I
Hmm.
said, what's that? he says, to tie somebody up in a technique. He says, because that's all it's good for. So he had a real epiphany about all the years he'd spent in Shotokan Karate, becoming very good at it. And then he discovered this thing called Krav Maga, which to him was just something completely different. And for him, much more practical, much more applicable. And that's not to be denigrating in any way to Shotokan Karate or any other style of karate for that. And this is just obviously his opinion. But he had a real kind of almost biblical moment. So he started to tell me about the Krav Maga. So I get really interested. And they got, him and Chris went off and managed to get the instructor's course in it. And they passed that and came back to me and said, look, we think they're starting a club. What do you think? So we talked about that. And I kind of gave him some advice for what it was worth. And I trained with them. So I trained with Brendan Morris and Chris Vance. And when I was working in a particular school, which will remain nameless, because we're but you know, you know it.
I know the story.
Yeah. So I said to some of the people there, I said, look, you know, I'm training this thing called Krav Maga. I said, yeah, we'll give it a go. So we actually ran a club at that particular high school for the staff for a period of time. And there was people long after I'd left that school going, we're still training in various places. So it was Chris Vance and Brendan Morris, the two guys that I trained with in that.
So what would like a typical Krav Maga session, what would it involve?
Well, I'm sure there are different instructors and different ways of doing it, but they're very, very different from any of the other kind of things that you would do. They would, a lot of kind of, so they would take you through as if you knew nothing about kind of anything to do with fighting whatsoever, really. And they were trying to impress you the importance of aggression, the explosiveness of what was going on in that moment. There would be kind of physical stuff, but there was fun stuff as well. So there was fun stuff and games that seemed fun at the time, but actually had a real meaning. Yeah, so they would do things like what they called the kind of zombie game. And I remember doing this with we ran myself and Brendan. Well, Brendan was leading it, and I was there helping him. We went up to a good friend of mine who I trained with quite a bit, Norrie McKenzie, former British light heavyweight, Muay Thai champion, and Norrie and I were good friends. I used to train with him and his fighters when I was up there. And we ran a seminar for Norrie and his fighters. We must have been about members of his club as well. They weren't all going in for competitions, but there must have been about 40 people there. And we were doing this thing, the kind of zombie game. And basically, it's about awareness and about movement. And people are zombies, they're walking towards you, you've got to move out of the way, but then another one comes in and they're coming from all angles. So it's about constant awareness and mobility. So they would do kind of fun things like that. But I suppose the thing that really kind of stuck in my mind was about it was the practical applicability of it. How you could make it work in a real life situation. And I remember one of the first main things, well, they would do things at the start, but get you to be aggressive because they didn't think everybody was aggressive. Hey, I was 12 years in the infantry. That was my thing. Aggression wasn't a problem for me. But for a lot of people, they've never been aggressive. And so they would try and teach them about being aggressive and even shouting and vocalizing and, really getting the sort of, so they would go through that kind of stuff. But the thing that kind of stuck in my mind from one of my first sessions with them was, and I remember I think I told you, I remember being given, what was really cool about Krav Maga was, they had this philosophy that you don't get attacked in the dojo. You get attacked going to the car. You get attacked out the street. So that's the way. I mean, I've been in sessions where they'd hired a pub, and for the session, and we did all the training in the pub.
Ah, right. Wow.
Because that's the kind of place that you would get attacked.
Yeah.
So one of the first, I think it must be the first exercise, apart from the kind of warm-up things, the games and things like that, that they gave me to do was they gave me this, she wasn't small, this lady, and basically I want you, Les, to get her safely from one end of this gym hall to the other. Meanwhile, everybody else had various kinds of kick shields and punch bags and all the rest of it, and focus mitts and everything else, and gloves on, to have a go at me and try and get to her. And he said, I just want you to get her safely from here to the other end without these people. And I did it, but it was very interesting to do, to be that focused. So a typical Krav Maga class they would develop things depending on the cohort that was there. Obviously, you know yourself, how do you tailor it to your kind of audience? I said, but they would go on the basis of most people don't know about aggression, so they're working with things about aggression, they're working things about mobility, about movement, a lot about awareness.
Yeah.
Being aware constantly what's going on, and then when you deal with the situation effectively, then getting away from the situation. So
Yeah.
you're not trying to stand in there and be marvelous Marvin Hagler. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not a points game. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a points game. And in many ways, there was a lot of similarities between that kind of training, that kind of style, and the Systema.
Okay.
And the Systema, how I got into that was quite bizarre. It was like something from a spy thriller. I was out in Paris with a friend of mine, and we'd both been in the army together. And he happened to be fluent Russian speaker. I mean, I can speak bits, but he was fluent.
Yeah.
And we walked along the River Seine, and I spot this guy ahead. I thought, that guy's got a Systema t-shirt on. And I said to my mate, he's got a Systema t-shirt on. I said, oh yeah, so I remember. Mate that was with me didn't know about martial arts, but he knew about Russian culture and society. So they'd lived there for 5 years. He said, oh yeah, so he has. So we kind of caught up with the guy and we started speaking to him. And it was a guy called Alexander McKinson, who was one of the main kind of guys really for Systema, and he was Federation of Russian Martial Arts of Ukraine. And we get talking there in Paris. We kept in touch, and I just find it really, really fascinating. And I brought him over a few times when he was in Europe to do seminars. And we did stuff with the Krav Maga guys. We did stuff with a whole range of people. In fact, the very first one we did was a big Krav Maga club in Glasgow. And then we did it for like some Benn and Chris Vance's guys. And then when he was up as well, it was quite good because I knew really well. He would kind of do one-on-one stuff with me and a couple of my pals as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was a kind of range of people got access to. But again, that was similar. It was about the Systema was about the most effective way of dealing with the situation, and then kind of keep yourself safe. But they did a lot more, I would say, about the fluidity of movement and more about the kind of general health and well-being aspect of it within it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
More so than the kind of Krav Maga. And if you look at, I think I showed you some stuff with Alexander, yeah, and the fluidity of movement, and they were quite big in that.
Yeah.
And they used to get us to do kind of mad kind of exercises, like. And again, it was all conducted in a similar way to Krav Maga. It was conducted in a more realistic environment.
Sure.
So you would maybe do something inside, but then you go outside. And you and I've talked about the kind of the Aikido and stuff, the break falling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they would do stuff like that as well. But you were doing it in tarmac.
Right, so you were actually break falling on the
wow. Forget you do that kind of stuff on the tarmac and building up to that and doing it outside and doing stuff like there was a metal bar, you were leaning over it, and there was a lot to do with the stomach. So they were looking very into the kind of health and well-being side of it.
The guy that you showed me, he looked incredibly fit. He was an older guy as
well.
Yeah,
that's Alexander McKinson.
Yeah,
that's the guy. Yeah, very, very fit. So he was based in Ukraine until obviously things started to go a bit dodgy in Ukraine, and he recognised that and moved out to Tenerife. So he's been out there training for years and years now. But I had him out, obviously. I had him up quite a number of times at us training, and it was fascinating to see. But yeah, he's very, very fit, very into kind of health and well-being generally and nutrition. But the big falling stuff, you saw him doing it along the benches and video I showed you, remember? He was doing the break fall along the benches stuff. Yeah, so there's all that kind of stuff as well. But similar in the say to Krav Maga in the sense it was for a kind of live situation. And he would say things like, it's important we train on uneven ground. We don't want to train in a dojo, which is flat. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So a lot of it was outside.
It makes so much sense. I've heard of like MMA fighters mimicking what they're going to face on the night. So they'll switch all the lights off in the gym and they'll put on like kind of lights as if it's a show, maybe even music as they're walking towards the ring. And their sparring's done really realistically. They'll have like people cheering, maybe bringing a wee audience or something like that, just to make the situation real. So that when they face it on the night, it's second nature. It sounds similar to that.
Yeah, it is, and I think a lot of that was, it was about giving you skills that you would use in a live situation. And and I know that in a lot of martial arts, no disrespect to any of them, a lot of it's point scoring.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time when you're holding off, it's not full contact as such. Yeah. And their view was very much, if that's what you do in training, that's what you do in real life.
Exactly.
Muscle memory apart from it. Also, their whole, because they weren't a sport, they were about you know, taking out the negative situation as quickly as possible, achieving the objective, and get yourself ready with your say. So it was all in environments and in a manner that was going to get a result. And certainly a lot of techniques that were shown you are pretty easy to remember. When I've
Yeah.
had to use it, I think I told you in a live situation, in a situation where somebody had a large stick,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh, a bit like a Joe actually, but as thick as the Joe, if not thicker,
Yeah.
and they were causing a real disturbance because they asked me to come and deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I just used a straightforward Krav Maga technique,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I knew to come in there and deal with it and disarm the person, so it does work.
Exactly.
Um,
I think you're right though. The training, you're basically training your nervous system to cope with the pressure of a real altercation, to keep your
yeah,
heart rate low, to think straight. It's
uh,
all important.
for the focus is important, and being aware of your surroundings and what's there and what's round about you. A lot of people, I've seen it, people in street fights, and they
Yeah.
just focus on right what's in front of them. They've got no indication about who's moving to the left, who's coming behind them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and even we were trying to get that across the kind of Norrie's guys when,
Aye.
we were training with them, the Thai boys, up at Nile Lewis. Just get to think a little bit differently about some of their approaches to stuff, even in the ring. But the feedback we got from the Krav Maga seminar was, phenomenal. Absolutely. I bumped into a guy a few years ago. Was up just for a holiday, and he said, "Oh God, Les, how you doing? I was great. You did the Krav Maga with us. It was amazing." I still remember. I was so enthusiastic about
That's
it.
cool. Yeah.
It was really, really good, and they got some really cool kind of experiences out of it, which was good. Tell you a funny story about it, though. It was at the start, so we're talking about what a typical Krav Maga session like. So remember I said that kind of zombie game thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got Norrie had the ring up. The ring was there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had a show or something. Anyway, so Brendan said, "We'll just use the ring up, make it more interesting. The space is tighter, so you have to think of the movement, and your awareness." I, as, as Brendan went to get in the ring and I went to get in at the ring at the same time, he turned round and my knee caught him right in his eye, and I absolutely I KO'd him.
Seriously, you got him? Ah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. He says,
Just
"That's
getting
it, you."
into the ring.
Yeah, just the
Yeah.
way we both went in for the different sides. And he says, "You
Yeah.
might," when he came round, he says, "You might have to take this." Like, he says, "I'm
Yeah.
sparked at the moment." But
Wow.
fortunately, I would have been my knowledge base that he had to be able to do
Aye.
that. So the realism with the Krav Maga and the system was very, very interesting because of the places to train and the way they kind of go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uneven surfaces, work in pubs and clubs, training in those environments. Yeah,
Yeah.
putting
Pressure
fear.
testing your
Yeah,
pressure
yeah,
testing your set.
yeah. And I would say that a lot of their stuff is pressure testing because
Mm-hmm.
even the kind of techniques they would do. So if you and I were a pair,
Yeah.
so we're all standing there. So you're one, I'm two. So he'll say, right, showing you, we'll demonstrate the technique. Number two is stand still, relax, close your eyes. When number one's ready, he's going to touch it and then attack you. You're going to have to do the technique.
Yeah.
And that was quite effective, except when idiots like me who've trained in other things, and then somebody comes to attack me. So it was a technique when I'm attacking with a high stick.
Oh yeah.
I was supposed to block and counter.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a thing called Shomanuchi Rimanagi that I knew very well from traditional Aikido. Bloody hell, it works. And the poor guy ended up away across, my partner, who was
Yeah.
across the room. And I remember Brendan saying it, he says, "Bloody hell, I'm damn sure I didn't teach you that, but it worked. What was it?" I said, "I'm really sorry." I said, but again, what that shows is muscle memory
Of
and
course.
reacting to the situation
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than my brain processing the technique had just been shown. When I was faced with that live situation,
Yeah.
what I did was what I had been comfortable with, which was Shomanuchi and Rimanagi, and it worked.
It's second nature because it's something that you've trained for
Yeah,
years, and that's what comes out when you're under pressure. You always fall back on the thing that you know the most. If you're a boxer, you'll fall back on your hands. If you're a
yeah,
kicker, you'll fall back on your kicks.
yeah.
You,
And I think
you,
Aikido was, what I did with it, I just tried to take things out that worked for me. And the Shomanuchi and Rimanagi, I really felt worked, and I proved that it did work for me.
yeah.
So that was quite positive. So that was a kind of Systema and Krav Maga, how I kind of got involved with those.
There's something that you really need to check out. It's on YouTube and it's called
Mm-hmm.
the Ultimate Self-Defense Challenge. Sorry, championship. Well, I'll send you the link
Oh, okay, cool.
to this. I think they're into like maybe like season 4 or 5 at the minute, and
That
it's
sounds quite good.
everything you've just described. It's
Right.
fantastic. They do all
Oh, I might look at that.
these live scenarios, but it's like in a competition format.
Oh,
So
right, that'd be interesting.
it's really cool. So like, the kind of competitors are from all different martial arts backgrounds, some combat sports, some traditional arts,
Mm-hmm.
and they get points for how they deal with each situation. So just like
Brilliant.
you've
That sounds
described,
really good.
how is their awareness? They do things
Yeah.
like they fight on a bus, or
Yeah, 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 yeah.
they
That's great.
escape a building where the people have entered and they're looking for them and they're kind of chasing them through the
Mm-hmm.
building. So it's more about just kind of keeping safe, keeping out the way, being evasive.
And
It,
listen,
it,
that's
it's
kind of Zombie. The old thing I was telling you about was about, being
I
aware, being evasive, getting out of the way. Yeah.
I
So
actually
that's it.
think I
That'd be
think
really
I think the person who runs the self defense academy in Australia, I think he is a Krav Maga guy. So this would make sense.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense then if there's a lot of
Yeah.
these kind of evasion or awareness things, yeah, which are really kind of cool. But those things that I've talked about there, they kind of came later in a sense. So I've kind
Hmm.
of jumped ahead. So if we describe the kind of experience of Shotokan Karate, because it was mini school and I
Yeah.
think I just did about one belt or something. It was later that through the kind of watch the boxing and into that, my proper martial arts experience kind of came later. So a guy called Yun Campbell, who was from Livingston originally, very friendly with Yun, and Yun was very heavily into the martial arts and trained with a lot of big people down in Asanto
Wow.
over in California, these kind of
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
And him and I were friendly, and he got me to train with him. So I used to go and train with him down at the Rough and Ready gym down in Northampton.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he had lots of really, I would think, really high class people there, and that was a long time ago. And to me, that was my first experience of what I would have called mixed martial arts
Of course. When
because
was
it was
this,
about,
Les?
oh God Almighty, roughly
Hmm.
when was UFC 1 and 2 roughly? When was that?
93.
That's about
93
when we're talking.
UFC 1. Is that the time
Yes,
period we're talking here?
that's
In the
about the time period. Yeah, because that's when it was. Yeah, because I was doing this. I was away with the army, and it was when I was coming back. I was having to fit that kind in.
Yeah.
So that'd be about right
Hmm.
because we were around about UFC 1 or 2, and that had just kind of very few people knew about it. And
Yeah.
that, I mean, I've got a disc because these guys were kind of aware of it. Well, they were aware of it. They knew about it, and what they were doing was JKD, Kali, and combat submission wrestling, and they were mixing it all together. And actually, interestingly enough, reflecting now, some of their techniques were quite similar to Krav Maga, the pressure testing.
Okay.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
remember one drill where you were in the middle and there was a multitude of attackers coming at you and you were having to
Hmm.
defend yourself simultaneously. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that was quite similar to Krav Maga. So it was really through Yun Campbell, really, and these guys. So he then got me exposure. I was very lucky, really, because I used to go to training with him because we were good friends. He would take me with him to various kind of seminars that were being run. So I trained with people like Mark McFann from the
Hmm.
States,
Hmm.
like JKD guy, one Dan and the Santos guys. Trained with him a number of times. Rick Young, got the
Aye.
pleasure of training with Rick Young a number of times as
Eric
well.
Paulson,
Eric
presumably.
Paulson was there. Yeah, Eric
Yeah.
Paulson was there.
Wow.
Um, and then, of course, the story was telling me we went to train with Neil Adams, a judo guy. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Big
we get
name.
close sessions with these guys.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Aye.
because
Aye.
because you were so well connected within the kind of the world of martial arts, and that's where I
Hmm.
kind of get into the Cali and the kind of GKDs
So
kind of stuff.
was you a GKD guy then? Was he a Jeet Kune
Yeah,
Do?
yeah,
That
we did a
makes
lot.
sense.
He did a lot of combat submission wrestling stuff as well. I mean, he did a
Okay.
lot. His grind game was very, very good as well. And I gave you that booklet that he produced.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But he
It's
did
the
a
kind
lot
of
of
catch
yeah,
as catch can type stuff, the
yeah.
catch wrestling.
Yeah. So he
Very
did a lot of
effective.
that. Yeah, he did a lot of that. A lot of that. He was very good at that. I was hopeless. I wasn't a great kind of person at all.
Mhm.
I remember coming back from sessions, just training with him and coming back, and my wife would say, "Why is your back black and blue?" literally black
Yeah.
and blue. Yeah, just training with him. So I trained with these guys with the Cali, the
Hmm.
JKE was really, really interesting. Um, and they would run a lot of seminars and bring me along with them. And what was quite funny, of course, was that I was the word that like all these guys were really.
Hmm.
But the people who were hosting the seminars, really looked up to the whole, Mark and all these kind of people. Because I was with him, I think they assumed that I was kind of at that level as well. So I get treated very well when I went to any of these things.
That's
So
class.
that was really good. So that developed a lot of interest in the martial arts, which then led me later to, train with Norrie in the Muay Thai, train with Barry Ogilvie, former best kickboxing champion, trained with him for a number of years.
Was he Dundee based, Barry
Yeah,
Ogilvie?
he was Dundee. That was the
Skyax, I believe.
Skyax, yeah, that's where he was. Yeah,
I do remember that name. He was a very good kickboxer.
Very good kickboxer, British lightweight champion. Yeah, and he was at the point where he could have kind of gone either way with that in terms of kind of pursuing that as a kind of career. He was out at the same time as a cool guy. You and I were talking about him the other day in Glasgow.
Legs Easton?
No, my daughter trained with him as well, Muay Thai.
Guy Ramsey?
No, we talked about guys, Philip, but no, Contender Asia.
Oh, Sean Wright.
Sean Wright, of course.
Sean Wright, tremendous Thai boxer. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And him and Barry knew each other, and they kind of trained about the same time. But Sean was able to go on and progress his professional career with that. But Barry didn't. He decided he went into teaching. So I then kind of trained with these kind of guys, and then I was introduced to the Aikido guy, Mike Flynn.
I know that name as well, Mike Flynn.
Yeah, Mike Flynn. So he's like, I can't remember what Dan he is. He basically come over from the States. He's ex-US Marine Corps colonel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So military connection, but he'd come over here because his second wife was a Scottish girl, and he settled here, and because he was big name in Aikido, he started a club kind of Christen way. And I asked to go along to it. So I kind of would go along to that. I find it I'm going to be honest and say, I find it really challenging. I find it difficult. Because at the same time, I was still training with the kind of Thai guys or Barry with the kickboxing. So I was kind of used to that. To go from that to the kind of traditional Aikido was
I get that.
I find it, I'm going to be honest, I find it really difficult. I can never get why somebody was grabbing you all the time. What it was great for was certainly things like the break falls were fabulous to do. That was really great to do. And some of the technique, the way I approached that was really about what works for me. Out of this,
yes.
There's no way all this is going to work for me that I didn't feel it did. But I thought, what's going to work for me? So those were the bits I kind of concentrated on. And of course, funny story again, you always get, you've come across this, it's always somebody who thinks they're a bit of a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
Who's been there for a while, has their black belt and think they are the next big thing.
You tend to, is this an Aikido guy?
Yeah.
You tend to get that I think you get that in the traditional martial arts more so than the combat sports, because you're not testing yourself all the time. Whereas in the combat sports, there's nowhere to hide. You're going to have to spar with these people.
Well, absolutely right. And you're absolutely right there, Andy, because if we compare contrast between, so when I've been training with the guys at Rough and Ready, but Mark McFann, all these people, Yun Campbell or Rick Young, anybody that came along with that attitude just got balloted.
Exactly.
Yeah, we thought if you're going to try and bully people here, we'll deal with you. Yeah, try that with us. Here's what happens. Yeah, but it didn't do that. That didn't happen in traditional arts.
No.
So this guy he's one of these guys you'd have to go up and he'd do the technique. He was a black belt, throw you around. That was fine. And then, but you'd always put something more painful and extra in that didn't need to be there.
Right.
Yeah. So you're trying to concentrate on the technique you're trying to, and he's added something else in. And I get, who was. And I thought, I've had enough of this one night. And I used to just go at training with like Krav t-shirt or a Muay Thai t-shirt or something. I said, listen, I waited for the end of the class when he came out. I said, listen, you're rocking. I said, see when you're up there. I said, do you think you're some kind of hero? You're digging in and something different because, I don't know the accent. Just put me out of order. I can't put the grip and sort itself out. And he was really quite sheepish about it. From what I heard, he kind of went on that until eventually Mike Flynn had enough of him and flung him out of the club altogether. Yeah. But you get people like, so the Aikido was interesting, but again, it was about me taking what worked for me, but probably in many ways the more interesting part of the Aikido for me was the weapons.
Okay, right.
So there you did bokken and Joe,
Yeah.
And then he also ran the Aikido classes, which I found fascinating as well. I thought they were very traditional. I got it, I got
Yeah.
it because a lot of the arts, as you know, a lot of the arts we have today come from weapon systems. So
Exactly.
a
I
lot of the movements,
believe Kido is a weapon disarming system.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I could get the Aido, the bokken, and the Joe a lot better when I got the actual hands-on Aikido.
Yeah.
So I got quite into that, and I used to train quite a lot. It's a good friend of mine who I've talked to you about in the past. Came from Lugar, Kenny Marshall.
Oh yeah. You
Yeah,
mentioned it.
Kenny. So Kenny was at the Aikido at the same time as me, but he trained over in Wishaw. We get together, a bit cross fertilisation, obviously. But Kenny and I really hit it off, and he was one of these guys who was fabulously talented. I was very humble.
Yeah.
Yeah, very humble. And he was a guy, unlike the other guy I've described, he was a guy who wanted you to progress, who wanted to help you. And he could see that I was really interested in the weapons in particular. So we used to get together of our own, and he would give me one-to-one kind of sessions in the, particularly in the bokken and the Joe, and the Idol, which is really, really good. Great guy, really humble, very talented, but would always talk himself down. He would never,
Yeah.
even though he had his black belt, Aikido and stuff, he would never look at himself that way.
Just really modest.
Yeah, and he helped me develop a lot of the kind of weapon stuff a lot better.
The thing that I quite like from Aikido, like wrist locks,
Mm.
I think that's quite useful, especially if you've got a wee judo background or a BJJ background. You can catch those wrist locks on people.
Yeah, I think I could get that. I mean, I've not done either of those,
Yeah.
judo or BJJ. It's not my kind of thing. I mean,
hmm
Yun Campbell did a lot of that. He came from a judo background as well. But so yeah, I get why that would kind of work. I just find that I find the Aikido very difficult to learn because it was taught in such a traditional Japanese way.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think, let's see when people can like move around and stuff, it's hard to catch them with a wrist lock because they can always
correct.
they can wriggle their way out of it.
Yeah,
But see if
yeah,
you've already tied somebody up and you're pinning them in a position and you
yeah,
catch them with a wrist lock, their elbows basically like braced against the ground and you're pushing
yeah,
down, those things are deadly because I used to train with a guy who he did Aikido first and then went
right.
over into BJJ and that guy would just catch you with wrist locks from everywhere.
Yeah,
It was
I can see how that would work. What's interesting though, Andy, is now that I reflect on it. So we're talking about taking that point you said there. So I can remember doing stuff with Alexander McFann for the Systema,
mhm.
where you're taking control of somebody and you ground them and you're putting them into an arm lock. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's similarities there with a lot, but the difference to me personally, it's just my opinion,
hmm
as a thickle trying to learn these things, was I could get what we're doing in the Systema a lot easier because there was an obvious applicability of it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to me, the problem for me was a lot of the time the techniques you were having to do in Aikido was always somebody grabbing the wrist or the other person grabbing something, and I thought, right, okay, maybe a
hmm
bit of that will work. But in the Systema, you could see that it was for one particular element, it would be very, very useful.
Aye, because you're kind of starting with the end goal in mind with
Yeah,
Systema. So
yeah,
this is a situation you've found yourself in. Here's how you get back out safely.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
with Aikido, and I've never done it, but I would imagine that there's a lot of kind of like, right, you grab my wrist, I'll grab your wrist, I'll come at you
yeah,
like this, and it's like,
yeah,
but there's no broader context. It's like, how have we
correct.
ended up in this position? So it's very like
Exact,
kind of static, if does that make
absolutely,
sense?
and 100% correct, Andy. And that's why I find it so
Yeah,
difficult. The other things I've done, I can see the applicability of them in
like straight
everyday life.
away.
Straight away, I get this, I get what we're doing this. But I'm going to grab you now, you're going to do this. Why is it bloody well grabbing all the time? Someone's grabbing all the time. And sometimes, it wouldn't always. I mean, there was shoving it should be magic, obviously, isn't it,
Mhm.
grab because it's a defence against somebody trying to split you in two, whether it's with a bottle or a stick
Yeah,
or whatever else.
yeah.
So not all the techniques were like that, but a lot of the work and maybe the foundation work I think
Is that the one where you kind of block like this and then you pull their hand behind them?
no.
No,
So
it's not
show me
that.
with that. So if you might come like that. So what I do is I
Uh-huh.
come in. So if that says online, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're coming straight down the middle, I'm coming here just offline. So I'm coming in towards you.
hmm
That's coming up, but that's just a guide for me,
Yeah.
right? That's not a block.
I'm with you.
You're
I'm with you.
here this
Yeah, yeah.
side of me. So your momentum is coming there. I've come in on you now. I've closed the
hmm
range on you. So we're now
hmm
parallel.
hmm
So your weapon should be whatever it is coming past me there.
Yeah.
At that point, so I'm coming through. So as I come through, that comes down. This comes round behind your head. This now comes from here, and I'm swinging. Remember,
It's like
maybe
it's like a clothesline in the
clothesline,
wrestling. I've
and
seen
yet
that,
when you
aye.
do it,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
person ends up over there. But what you're doing is you're taking their momentum forward, then it's going back the other way.
Aye, it's like a
Yeah,
circular
it's hard to do
motion.
it sitting down.
No, no,
Yeah,
I've
so it is.
definitely,
So you're coming through like that, and as you come
aye,
through like that, that's coming round, and then you're coming back round that way. And that worked. I mean, that clearly worked, and I used it. You know, to
yeah,
me, that's almost more applicable to a kind of Systema or Krav Maga kind of technique. So not all Aikido was the kind of grabbing wrists and stuff, but a lot of it.
aye. I think that is, I mean, I think with most martial arts, you'll find elements within them that are applicable. And I say most because there's some that are just so out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think I was lucky because of Yun Campbell, and I know I don't know him, but he was really the guy that kind of helped develop the kind of martial art and got
Yeah.
real interest in Mark McFann and Rick Young and these people. I mean, they were fantastic because there was an obvious applicability
Oh,
to
for
everything
sure.
they were teaching. Yeah, everything they
Yeah.
were teaching. Uh, and that, though, made it more problematic, as I was saying, for me when I went to such a traditional art.
Yeah.
Because I was doing like, how does this work now? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And it was never explained to you.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. But yeah, I think there's a predictability in a lot of arts. But I mean, it was useful. I'm not going to be derogatory to anybody who does Aikido because there
Hmm.
were a lot of really good things in it. The breakthrough
Hmm.
was fabulous to do.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really good to do. And some of
Yeah.
the techniques were really, really effective. So yeah, that was interesting to do as well. But it was for me, it was about taking from what I could out of it that would work for me and clearly not apply it. So I wasn't trying to, learn large swathes of Aikido would be an Aikido
No,
expert. It was about trying to take what would work for me and apply that. And that came to
exactly.
I suppose that came to the JKD thing. Yeah.
And see, well, it did. And see, back then, I think like people were trying to discover what exactly worked and what didn't in any context in a fight, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Um,
think what was really cool about the Rough and Ready places was these guys were they were doing mixed martial arts. That's necessarily calling it that, but that's what
yeah,
they were doing. Because they were all trying different techniques. So let's see how this works here. And that was really innovative, I thought. And as I say, it was right about then I got to learn about this thing called the UFC, and then
of
they
course.
gave me kind of footage of it, and I go, "Oh my goodness, this is really interesting."
Hmm.
But I think a lot of my kind of thought process in the martial arts, and I've always said to people so when I was working at schools and parents would say, "Oh, you do a bit of martial arts," and they say, "What do you recommend my child in?" I'd always say judo every time.
I completely agree. I think it's definitely foundational.
Yeah, absolutely. Hands on, movement, throws, you know, it's structured. It's Olympic sport. There's everything there for it. I say give your kid a really good
Yes.
foundation. And if they want to get into something else after that, absolutely.
And it's the thing I think to learn when you're younger, judo,
Yeah,
because you've
yeah,
still got soft bones.
yep,
Coming to judo at a later age, I think is really difficult. Jiu-jitsu's not too bad, it's a wee bit softer on the body, but judo's a tough sell. Anything over
yeah.
the age of say 25, it's difficult to learn it without getting injured.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I'd always say to the parents of carers to say, yeah, definitely judo. Yeah, the child will really benefit from it,
What
even
about
if they don't stick.
boxing? Boxing as well, maybe?
Boxing, yeah, boxing as well was the other one with it that
Hmm.
I would say to them as well. And a lot of good boxing clubs around, a lot of great techniques you can learn in there for fitness as well. But
Yeah,
a lot of people, parents, carers, and even kids themselves, were quite sceptical or weren't so keen on the boxing idea. They didn't fancy getting punched in the face.
exactly.
Was it Tony Bell? Was it Tony Bell? You said everyone's got
Uh-huh.
a plan to get punched in the face, or
Mike
whoever it was.
Tyson? Mike Tyson
Tyson has
said
said
that
it.
first,
Mike
aye.
Tyson said it. Yeah. And it's right, and a lot of people didn't like that idea, so that's why more of them were keen to go to something like judo.
And there's also this thing about like people punching, or kids, sorry, punching other kids in the face. You don't want that either. Like it's a much better situation if you can grab somebody and control them. I think it
Yeah,
always looks better than a kid going out and punching another kid. Even if they deserve it, like it could look really, really bad.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I think most of the parents' kids I came across just didn't like the idea of their kid, getting punched in the face, so they would push them
Yeah.
more towards the kind of judo, which I think was fine. But no, I agree with you, Andy. The boxing as well, definitely one to go for. Absolutely.
So there's a guy called, I think we've spoken about him before, Jeff Thompson.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know his stuff, and he talks
yeah.
about this, and he says
Fabulous
like,
background.
eh?
Fabulous background. Jeff
Oh,
Thompson. Yeah,
fantastic. I mean,
amazing. Yeah.
and he talks about this. He says like judo and boxing, foundational. That's
Yeah,
what, if you're sending your kid to go to learn some form of self-defense, those two are
yeah,
kind of key.
absolutely, Andy. Yeah, no, I think they
Aye.
definitely are. Yeah. What else
I,
you want to know? You want to ask me some things? I've talked too much there, haven't
no, I've
I?
actually asked you a lot of those things
Yeah.
already, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
I was wanting to know kind of like what you started with, the direction it took, your
Uh-huh.
evolution within. So we've covered a lot of that. Do you mind, can we go into some of the military stuff? Is that off limits or?
Depends what you want to say. We'll do one more martial arts thing before we go into the
Aye, for
military stuff.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one of the things I didn't mention that I got an opportunity to train in, and again, it was around about the time I'd been training with Barry and the kickboxing and Norrie with the Thai boxing. I'm really quite into that. And then I was quite kind of study it, develop it a bit. And my cousin at the time was dating a guy called Leonardo Mendez from Venezuela,
Hmm.
and he was a Kyokushin Karate instructor.
Oh, wow.
So
Right,
I
okay.
used to get to train with him, and I passed a couple of grades. He did it a couple of grades. That's crazy.
That's
So I
crazy
kind of
stuff.
that's
Yeah.
crazy stuff. So I mean, I enjoyed it because it was hardcore. I kind of
Hmm.
resonate with my kind of infantry brain.
Yeah.
But I remember going out to train with them in Tenerife, and boy, that was hot. But that was full on from the start. That was full on. Your training
Aye.
was blah, blah, blah. Anyway. And so the first day I was there, and I was sitting thinking, we had a break, which wasn't much very often in the night. We got a break, and I'm thinking, I know what he's going to do. He's at the end of this night, he's going to want to test me against the best dude he's got here.
Mhm.
And sure enough, at the end of the night, when we think we're all just about to pack up, Les. And then he calls over his guy, and he wants us to do a bit of sparring. The kick is shared, there's no gloves, obviously. Yeah,
Exactly. It's punches to
yeah.
the body. Yeah.
Punch to the body, you can't punch to the face, but you can kick to the head.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's very low kick. I can't really do it sitting down. It's very low stance. I think I showed you before, right? Very low stance down
Yeah.
here and batter away. So I gets up. I thought, well, here we go. And I got into that stance and I thought, right, okay, I can do this. I can do a bit more of what I know myself from before. So I get in a bit more of a crispy, a JKD, a kind of Muay Thai stance.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then what I did was when he said, a Jimmy kind of thing go, I did a big teep kick
Yeah.
and pushed him back. And then it became, for some reason, I can I won't say very good at it, but I'm relaxed in being able to switch between orthodox and southpaw.
That
I,
makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
not like the great Terence Crawford, who
No,
just I
no.
think was amazing, but I can do it. What I mean is, I
Yeah.
can do it as I'm not that kind of a ability. But I can do it as fluidly as that because I don't know why. I'm just I can't write with my left hand, but I seem to be able to switch between orthodox. So what I did, I gave the teep kick, and I went into a southpaw stance and started swinging, and that confused the heck out of him.
Yeah.
Because in Kyokushin, they're just used to stand and batter away each other.
Yeah.
So he starts kind of backing off a bit then because the teep kicks push the back anyway. And I've now come in to close the range and I'm bashing away with a few shots. And Leonardo, I'll never forget this, his instructor's behind him with a bamboo pole, hitting him and basically swearing, going off and get back in,
Wow.
get effing back in there, get effing back in there. So it's quite, the Kyokushin was quite kind of
It's
hardcore.
tough. It's like a real tough contest, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Kyokushin.
liked it. I liked it. So I liked the training methods that were very full on, very aggressive.
I don't
And I
like
liked
the idea of getting hit with a stick though. That seems a bit
No, I
too
think that
far.
was a bit. I don't think that was. I think it was just him that night. I think he was a bit shocked that I just put his best guy right back to the
Aye,
middle of next week. That was it. They
aye.
don't usually do that. But I remember being over in Wishaw on a Aikido training session,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I came out and there was a karate competition on in Wishaw Sports Centre, and one of
Hmm.
the officials was outside getting a break. I said, "Oh, you got a karate thing?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you mind if I come in?" He said, "Of course, come in." I said, "I'm just training with a kid. Come on in." The guy was lovely. So he was taking me around and he was showing me. And it was, sport kind of karate stuff, points,
Yeah.
not. And I said, "Have you got all types of karate?" "Oh, yeah." I said, "Have you got Kyokushin?" And he stopped. And I went, "Oh, no. No, I don't have
No,
that." He says,
no,
"That's nuts."
that's
I said,
nuts.
"Well, I've trained a bit
Exactly.
in Kyokushin." He just looked at me as if to say, "Who's this lunatic?"
Those guys are a different breed, like Kyokushin. It's wild. Do you ever remember a fighter called Andy Hoog?
Yes, Andy Hoog.
The
I've
the
watched
late
some, a number of
great.
his fights, yeah.
I used to love watching him in the
He
the,
was
the
great.
early K1 tournaments. I
Yeah,
thought he was absolutely incredible.
he was. Still got a few of the K1 DVDs. Who
Huh?
was the other guy? This guy, Dolph Lundgren, I'm sure, is Kyokushin back
Dolph
then.
Lundgren was Kyokushin, that's correct.
Yeah, yeah. Andy Hoog was great, yeah. The other guy I liked from Andy that year was John Wayne Parr, of course.
Oh, he was great.
He was Thai.
He came a wee bit later.
He was later, yeah,
He
but I
was
like.
slightly
Yeah, he was later. Andy Hook was before that. That's right.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
There is a big overlap between the Kyokushin and Muay Thai. They're pretty similar in their kicking base.
yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. I mean, I
Um,
enjoyed it. I enjoyed the bits of Kyrgyzstan that I did. And it's, in fact, I've still got
aye.
that actually. I mean, I don't know if I could get the
Hmm.
kits up here myself. But
Oh, aye. I
they gave
recognise
me
that.
that.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
see it?
I do see it. Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
it. Yep,
put it back a bit there better.
I could see it when it was further back a wee bit.
Further back.
Yeah,
Is
there we
that
go.
better?
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's really cool,
That was
man.
one of the things he gave me as a kind of souvenir from my training with him, along with the
Aye.
couple of certificates I got from kind of training with him. But no, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was hardcore, but I liked it. And even my kids were quite young at that time, the two boys, and they came and trained with him. And he made, he was, he kind of made them train hard, but fair, totally fair. There was no bullies and Kyokushin. There was none of that. Yeah.
I would imagine
So,
it would weed out the bullies pretty quickly.
yeah, I think it does. I think it does. Talking
Uh,
about kids, if you don't mind, I want a big shout out to my daughter who trained in Muay Thai.
sure. Ah, nice.
Won all her fights.
Where did she train?
She trained when she was at uni, the
Oh,
club in it, the Glasgow Cali, and she did a bit of training. She did train with Guy Ramsey. She
yeah.
trained with um, Sean when he was over a few
Hmm.
times as
Hmm.
well. And then she had a look at some other clubs, but didn't really think that their Muay Thai was particularly great in
Aye.
comparison to the instruction. She trained with Norrie, obviously, from
Hmm.
Norrie.
Hmm.
As I say, it's quite weird going to watch your daughter get into a ring and fight.
How many?
That's right.
Of course. How many times did she fight?
I think she had about 4 or 5, off the
Did
top
she?
of my head. Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder if I would. I wonder if I seen any of those fights. Then when was this roughly?
Oh, God, she's 30 now, so
Aye,
she was at uni, so that's a while ago now. She'd been in her 20s, so about 10 years ago.
for sure. I would definitely have
Yeah,
seen some of her fights.
yeah.
Um,
So
that's
she,
interesting.
yeah, so she got into the martial arts. She did bits of, she trained in Systema when Alexander came over. She trained with us in Systema. She trained
Hmm.
a little bit with the Krav Maga.
Hmm.
They had to go to the Aikido, but she didn't really take it.
I think
Uh,
the person you mentioned there, Guy Ramsey, he's really
yeah,
open-minded. He was from a
yeah,
karate background himself. I don't know. I
yeah, he's
don't
a
think it
great
was
guy.
Kyokushin. I think it was maybe Shotokan or something, possibly.
Yeah, he might be out of Wadi Ryan or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah,
And
Barry
and
knows it really well. Barry's trained with him quite a lot of times.
he's an excellent instructor,
Yeah,
an excellent coach, and he's also I've sparred him a few times. I used to train over at the Grip House way back in
right,
2012,
right.
and back then, I mean, phenomenal, an absolutely
Yeah.
great a great fighter in his own right.
Oh, but excellent. I mean, he still links with Norrie up in Lewis because I know he goes up sometimes to do kind of stuff with them up at
Yeah.
Norrie's gym up there on the Lewis. Yeah, I've seen some of the footage from that recently as well.
I can remember I've sparred with one of Norrie's fighters at a guy's gym at an interclub, a guy called Mike Scuton.
Oh, Mike Shooting. I know Mike really
Do you
well.
know?
Yeah, I trained
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Mike. Yeah, Mike. Well, so when you'd been doing that in our club, Mike Shooting, I'm sure would have been quite near the kind of start of his journey and kind of Muay Thai. I
He
think
was just a young
young
guy.
boy.
Aye.
Yeah. So Mike Shooting, Mike and his dad were both staying up and down the Lewis at that time. That's how Mike got into the Muay Thai. I don't know. My daughter said he's doing something completely different now. He went away from it for a while.
He gave me a pasting that day. I'll see if I can
Really?
find the wee. Aye, he was
He
pretty
was
good.
a solid kind
He
of
was a
guy, a very
solid
solid.
guy,
Yeah,
a good bit bigger.
yeah,
I think I was a bit more experienced, but he was very good. I can remember him mixing it
yeah.
up really well between his boxing and his
Yeah,
kicks.
he's
And I
all
seen
right.
him.
Yeah, I mean, I trained with him a few times. Get pictures
Aye,
of Mike and us in the club. Yeah, up at training at his club. But the one that I would have thought you were going to say was Gary Thomas Reynolds, because that's what been one of Norrie's main kind of fighters over the years.
yeah.
Irish guy.
Hmm.
Uh, he comes down and quite often fights. Doesn't always win, but he quite often comes down and fights. I've trained with him. I crack a bit of footage. I don't know if Mike Kenny still got it from when we. So I told you that we did the Krav Maga seminar for Norrie and his fighters,
Hmm.
and then after that, my mate Kenny and I, because they said, look, what about your other stuff? Can you come up and maybe do something from that? So I used to show them a bit of weapon stuff, but obviously we then wanted to know a bit about the Aikido stuff. So Kenny Marshall, I went up, we did an Aikido seminar from, and there's a cracking bit of footage of Gary Thomas Reynolds. And Kenny's got him in a hold and he's spinning him round, and Gary Thomas Reynolds is screaming like a banshee. So that's tough Muay Thai fighter. And it was genuine screaming as well.
Aye.
Yeah, but Gary Thomas Reynolds, good guy. He's been fighting for a few years from Norrie's gym.
Aye, that's really cool. It sounds like you've got like a massive, like a really broad experience across all different martial arts.
I was just very lucky. I was never any good at any of them. I was just very lucky to get, know a lot of people who were into that and would invite me along and spend time with me to help me understand them and developing some of them. And I was really appreciative of those people. And as I say, I mean, the big people that made a big impact to me were obviously Yun Campbell, McFann, Rick Young, Kenny Marshall, Barry, Norrie McKenzie. All these kind of people I mentioned were the main kind of people that had a real big impact on my kind of learning and understanding about martial arts.
So, see to cross over a wee bit then. So, how do you feel that, see, like you're kind of training in the martial arts, did that help or complement your training in the military?
So I think a lot of people kind of get, so if you take that, the Russians tend to be more into that. I mean, they teach a lot of their troops, some of their troops Sambo.
Oh, Sambo, aye.
Yeah, and they'll also teach them some of Systema. They kind of, you see the US Marine Corps guys doing some of their kind of, they've got some kind of work.
They do BJJ as well, I believe.
They do BJJ as well. Well, mate, I've got a few mates in the US Marines. And in the British military, we tend not to kind of go down that. I remember I was in the infantry, and if anybody's going to do it, it would be us that would do it. It would tend to be more kind of specialised units that would kind of focus in on elements of that. We tended not to do that. The martial arts, they're probably the infantry kind of aggression helped in the martial arts, the focus as well, not giving up. I thought that can also be a negative.
Okay, how so?
So picture the scene. Ewan and the guys have taken me to Neil Adams, private seminar with Neil Adams. There's maybe about 10 people there, including me. Lovely. I mean, what a guy. Absolute fabulous guy. And I didn't know anything about the stuff that we're doing. And we were doing chokes. Of course, I didn't know that you're supposed to tap out. She felt, I'm just saying to myself, I'm not giving in. I'm not giving in. I'm not giving in. So that kind of mindset isn't always
exactly.
So I went, it gave them a good laugh, if nothing else. No, I think that having the focus, the determination, the aggression for the military, that certainly helped.
Yeah.
And controlled aggression. Not just wild aggression, that's useless. Focus and controlled aggression were helpful, definitely.
I've always wondered that. Like, I've seen video footage of people in the army doing something called milling.
Oh, milling, yes, that's the parachute regiment. So in the parachute regiment, that's just about can you take it? That's just let's see if you get guts. That's about stand there and back away your best pal for the next few minutes. Yeah, and
that's wild.
Yeah, and it's just about can you take it? Can you do what you're told and take it? Yeah. I was with the parachute regiment. I would say that any time I was in any courses with the paras, nobody beat me in any fizz.
Say that again, sorry?
If I was in a course with for the parachute regiment, they never beat me in any physical activity.
Did they not?
No, not once.
Right.
No disrespect to them.
No.
That was just about me pushing myself and going, just because you've decided to jump out of planes doesn't mean you're fitter than me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always pushed myself. It kind of acted as a bit of an incentive for me to do it. But the paras would do the milling. The Marines sometimes do a bit of hand-to-hand combat. They're great guys.
Yeah.
But generally in the army, it's not something that you get as part of your kind of basic training. Of course, in the boxing, every regiment's got its boxing team, and people can go and do boxing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember a funny story about that as well. I remember as a very young officer, there used to be like a course book, and you could go through it and pick things. And I put down for doing the boxing course. They got taken in by the colonel said, Les, you're an officer, you don't do boxing. You're not going.
No.
It's not for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could go and do it as a sport. The army's great for supporting you if you're good at any sport. And of course, you could argue as well. Remember that the Gurkhas kukri.
Okay.
I've got one of them back there that my mate the Gurkhas gave me. So the Gurkhas knife work.
Yeah.
For the kukri. But generally speaking, in the military, it's not something that was developed.
That really surprises me, and also like see when I see these videos of like police officers in altercations, and I think like a little martial arts training would go a long way.
Well, I suppose it would, but I suppose I'm biased in saying yeah, it would. But there's other part of me, like an army head kicks in and says, well, in combat, you got a very specific role in the infantry, and you've got weapons with you.
And that's different. Aye, that's
But
different.
even in Trivia, which is fighting in built-up areas, if it
Hmm.
gets to the level of hand-to-hand combat, something's going wrong somewhere.
Aye, of
Now,
course. No, I get it. Aye.
somebody's run out of ammunition. But yeah, I still think that maybe a little bit would be useful in
Uh,
that scenario.
maybe more so for police though. What do you think?
Um, I need to be careful what I say here. I'll upset the coppers. You know? Yeah, I
Plus,
think probably more applicable for the police than civilian role because in the military, particularly infantry, you've got it's a different kind of job you're doing all together, and you're armed with various kind of weapon systems.
yeah.
But of course, you do close work, and you're looking at what's happening in Ukraine today at the moment.
Mm,
In a lot of the close combat, they're
mm,
taking place in trenches and stuff, and also in buildings and things as well. And I have seen live footage of hand-to-hand combat between Russians and Ukrainians, and neither of the two of them knew what they were doing.
of course.
So
Just
I take your
instinct.
point. Yeah, just into I take your point, Andy, that a lot bit of
Mhm.
martial arts training would probably be beneficial. Yeah,
I mean, the reason I say that is because I mean, I think having done martial arts and combat sports pretty much my whole life, you go through phases where you try something, say, like you've never done before, say, like Muay Thai.
yeah,
You've never trained in it before, and you go there and you train for, say, like 6 months. It changes you as a person because you put yourself in situations that you couldn't find yourself in any other kind of part of your life where you're under pressure, you're having to react. And I think it's sort of, in a way, it toughens you up.
I'd agree with that. I think it does. Indeed, a lot of the Krav Maga drills and the Systema drills, because they're so kind of real life based, really put you under pressure to
Of
see how
course.
you react as well, and kind of toughen you up. When you've
Yeah.
got even in a scenario, right, drills when you're in the bar, and then the attack comes, and they've all got okay, they've got pads and they've got gloves, but they're still wading into you, and
Yeah.
you've got to fight your way out of that. It's a pressure situation when you're in a bar, and you're tight for space, so you learn a lot about yourself, and I learn a lot about how to deal with situations. So when I was in one of the schools, as you know, ASN,
Yeah.
there was one kid that I spent a lot of time with, and there was part of the time I would spend with, I give him a little bit of instruction to
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
direct his aggression in a positive way,
Yeah.
and kind of
Oh,
teach him a little bit of Krav Maga.
yeah.
And we had some kit in the school, so we had a small kind of sparring dummy, if you want to call it that,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I used to teach him just about, if he did get attacked, I'd teach him about being aware, in the situation, what was round about him, the explosive element of it in the first few seconds and how important that is, and then to get away but still keep scanning,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know, to help give him a practical bit of safety, for his own listing.
Aye.
So I think I mean, he really, and his parents, the care said to me, they really got a lot out of that, and it helped to kind of develop him. I could see, interesting, I could see a change in him. He
Aye,
was not
that
this crazy young kid, he was thinking more about things.
I think it does that for so many young people. It gives them a focus. Something
Yeah,
like boxing or kickboxing, especially,
yeah,
you know, you can channel some of that aggression into
oh,
something
absolutely.
positive. You could train for like 8 or 9 weeks, take a kickboxing fight, and use it in a productive way rather than sort of like as you say in pubs or in public.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a kind of similar thing with that with people that was dealing with, was very, very autistic and used to get in a lot of trouble in the school. One of the things, what I found out, that a lot of autistic kids in particular,
Yeah,
they wouldn't take to the traditional kind of PE sports. So I wanted to think, well, I want to give these kids a real positive experience. What can I do to give them that positive? What can I find that they will really engage with? And one of the things that I found that they really engaged with was American football.
really?
American football, linear.
Yeah.
If I say to them, "Okay, this is what you do, or what you run a route called five and in, or five and
Hmm.
hook,
Hmm.
5 yards, hook round, catch the ball. They get it. Run a slant angle, yeah.
Yeah.
Five and in, I run 5 meters or 10 and in, 10, and then go a right angle and go right across, catch the ball. So they really get into that, and he get into it. And I then introduced him to the East Kilbride Pirates American football team.
Okay.
And he joined that, and he won Player of the Year against all the other non-ASN kids in that
How
place.
cool's that?
I was delighted for him, and it made a big difference for him in the school because the
That's
aggression
amazing.
was now being challenged in to the American football where
Yeah,
he could hit bodies legally without,
exactly.
yeah, in a meaningful way. And it made a bit, it calmed him down a lot in the school and made a big guy still in contact with me.
Now that's really cool.
Yeah,
Uh, that's a great example. I think like sports, martial arts. I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't need to be martial arts. It can be like sports, team sports, individual sports.
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it can really change you as a person.
It does. I think it does. It changes. It gives you a lot of self confidence, a lot of awareness.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, I think it's well worth
Nice.
doing for kids. And as long as the kids are properly supported and channeled in it,
Yeah,
and they don't get exposed to these kind of bullies that are in the clubs, or the
that's true.
ones who. The other thing that always used to really annoy me was, somebody take the karate class of 35 kids,
Mm.
or if it's karate or whatever it is,
It's too
and
many
one
in the one.
instructor, yeah, what those kids really get out of that. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there I saw who were just doing it to make lots of money for themselves, as opposed to really teaching people martial art.
That is a big thing. There's a term for that. People call them McDojos.
Yeah, I haven't heard that for a while, but yeah, that rings a
Yeah.
bell now. Yeah, yeah, you get a lot of that, and I've seen it, and I just think, what
Hmm.
these kids really get. They get a little gee on and they think, but maybe there's elements of it's positive for the
Yeah.
socialisation and other things, but in terms of
Sure.
developing an art, we're not probably getting much out.
And that's how I was saying earlier. Like, I think there's some martial arts that, well, I would say you can take something from most, but I would say most, not all, because
Yeah.
some, have you ever seen these guys that do stuff like they do no touch knockouts and
Oh,
mystical type stuff? And
oh.
I think that can be actually an unhealthy activity.
Yeah, you see a lot of more of that type of thing now with social media because they
Yeah.
post these kind of things and people kind of think it's real. And the thing that worries me is the so-called students that are there with them. These are not the droids you're looking for, kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
mind games. Just go, come on, yeah, you really think that's real? And people latch onto it.
But people do though, that's the
Yeah,
thing. They can be convinced with a charismatic person. They're
yeah.
maybe looking up to that person and they get slowly brainwashed into believing these things.
I think they do. They get exposed to it, and they want to kind of believe it. There's a bit of an
Yeah,
element for some people who want to believe that that's it, and of course they try to use that in a life situation and wonder why they get absolutely smashed.
I know. No,
why,
definitely.
why was the force not with me, young Skywalker?
There's even like people, there's videos, I'll send you some links again of like people, I think it was in Japan, and there was a guy who claimed he could like knock people out without touching them, and he was like shouting and he was like flipping people over, without touching them. And then he took a fight with an amateur MMA fighter, and the guy, I don't know why he done it, he must have believed that he had these magical powers. And the
Get
guy ran
hammered.
in and he just grabbed a hold of his collar and hit him with a right cross. And it's horrible to watch this old guy, but I don't know. He must have actually believed in his own ability. He must have.
I think that's what happens. So Andy, I think it's a lot of
Aye.
people who, it's like people who tell lies, whether it's in the workplace or it's like a lot of these people we come across them, these Walter Mitty's who claim they're in the military.
Yeah,
They
of
build up a
course.
scenario and they actually start to believe it themselves. And it's almost as if the brain says, yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did. And a lot of people in these kind of martial arts, they believe, yeah, I can do this. I've done this. So I
Aye.
think there's a psychology in there about that the way the brain processes
It's
information.
it's almost like a form of hypnotism, self-hypnosis.
Yeah, I think it is. They lie to themselves, but they believe the lie. They actually,
Eventually, aye.
in order to cover up the lie, they have to
Mhm.
believe it themselves. Yeah, and to make it real.
And it's crazy because some of these guys, the no-touch knockout guys, they were legit martial artists to begin with. And
And then
and
they
things
go
like
into it.
karate, they were competing. And then basically they found out they could get more students through telling these lies. They can make more money. They could become more popular because it's something a bit niche. They sink themselves into it. And I think you're right. I think eventually they believe.
I think they do, and then reality comes when they're exposed to a live scenario.
Yeah.
And I always think it's interesting as well if you um, take some of these. Like that guy I was telling you was the bully from the Aikido, back in the day. I'd love
Mm.
to take it him and say, right, okay, let's do Systema, let's do JKD, right, come and train the rough and ready gym and see how long we
Mm.
last there. Yeah, let's train with these guys. Here's Rick Young. what are you going to do with
Exactly.
him? Yeah.
It's a real humbling experience.
Yeah, absolutely. But these guys, the good thing about these guys, and I was very fortunate I got exposure, regular exposure to these guys. They're fantastic people, genuine people who really wanted to help them and see you develop and progress and have an understanding of what they were doing. And that's what made a real big difference. That's what kind of stuck with me, the humility of most of them.
Oh, for sure.
Has that been all right, Andy? Has that made sense, or have I rambled too
It,
much?
no, it makes perfect sense to me. Like, I think we've covered like loads of topics, different martial arts. The one thing that I did want to ask you about though,
Uh-huh.
Les, was see,
Mhm.
you told me that you wrote articles for some martial arts magazines. Which ones was it?
Combat and fighters. Yeah, combat and
Aye.
fighters. So yeah, I did about 5 or 6 or more than that probably. So I did one of the day. I did one. I'll show you. I did ones for. I did one for Norrie's German fighters.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
with a big 4-page spread, I think, of Norrie's Muay Thai gym up there. I did one for Krav Maga. I did one on Aikido.
Hmm.
That was in combat. No, the Krav Maga one and the Aikido ones were both in combat. And I did one on Barry Ogilvie specifically
All right. Okay.
because Barry was a real big help to me. Took a lot of time. Barry and I are still great
Hmm.
friends. We talk every week, and he was great to train with and teach
Yeah.
me the kind of the kickboxing stuff. So I did an article on him for fighters. So I did about 5 or 6 of those, I think, and then unfortunately both fighters in combat went plunk, and that was the end of that.
Did you
Uh,
have like a background in writing or something then?
No, well, I'd always kind of written articles and stuff. I suppose when it was at university, you write your thesis and your essays and all,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed kind of writing. So quite a lot of publications, so I accumulated quite a lot of publications, I suppose, over the years. So when I
Hmm.
was at uni, so when I finished with the army stuff and I went into education, I lectured in university for a while. And so you're obviously writing papers
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
enjoyed that. So it was psychology I was lecturing, so I got
Hmm.
publications in psychology there. And then when I left that, I went into kind of secondary education. So my subjects in secondary education, like history, geography, and modern studies, and
So
psychology. So I was
yeah.
then writing. But I was one of these people who would always like to kind of diversify a little bit. So I ended up doing kind of maybe writing history articles for magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I did a lot of sports ones as well. So
Hmm.
like football stuff or programs and stuff. So I've done quite a lot of those. So I was quite into quite like that kind of thing. So by doing the articles, it was just something I enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And the guy, I forgot the chap's name, who was the editor at the time, lovely guy, he was really keen for me to keep doing different ones. He said that people really liked him, but it was just a
Yeah.
pity that all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, there was something strange about it, that they both collapsed at the same time.
I
The
miss those
magazines,
magazines. Like I used to love buying
yeah,
fighters in combat, and we would exchange them. We would take them into martial arts classes, and everybody would buy a different month, and we would swap
yeah,
them
brilliant,
and read through them cover to cover.
yeah.
It was a great time for that.
It was, and I remember, probably from when I'm a little older than you, I remember fighters when it used to be the black and white cover with the kind of big red block across the top and
Oh,
fighters
aye, yeah,
in
yeah,
yellow. Yeah.
that's
And I
right. I
remember,
remember that.
yeah. And one of the guys, I think I mentioned him before, was that Jean-Yves Stereo, the fighter.
Yes,
And
yes, I
yeah,
know him.
Canadian guy, I'm sure both
Yeah,
Canadian. I
yeah.
used to love reading articles about his fights and stuff. And
Aye,
that
he
used to
was
kind of get
good.
me interested. Yeah, that kind of stuff as
He
well.
was like
Yeah,
an above the waist kickboxer.
he was, that's right. Yeah, he was really interesting. Yeah,
But
so he was one I remember reading about. Yeah.
I'm sure he bridged the gap though. I'm sure he ended up fighting like low kick or Muay Thai eventually.
I don't know. I can't.
He was one of
Blind. I
those
can't
guys.
remember. Yeah, he was really. I remember reading those old,
Yeah.
getting them at the time when I was younger, and reading about Johnny Stereo and thinking, "Oh, this guy sounds amazing."
What I like about martial arts, it's like a worldwide. It's like every country you could go anywhere, and you could join a kickboxing gym and instantly connect with everybody in the room because you all share that.
Yeah,
It's like a language almost. They all share
yeah,
that
it
thing
is.
in common.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. Uh, and I think there's a lot of really good, genuine people out there who
Yes.
make a huge difference to thousands and thousands of people on a daily basis by teaching them respective martial arts. So it's like
Yes.
a big family in a sense. I think you do is with hinted at before, get in any organisation you're
Oh,
going to get
aye.
your kind of people who are a problem. But that's why I always liked when I was training when Ewan and Mark McFann and Rick Young and these kind of people down at Rough and Ready, if anybody came along like that, they were very quickly dealt with. And they would deal with them. They would deal
That's
with them and go, right, okay, this is what the attitude you're coming with. This is what you're getting. Let's see if you can take it.
that's what
9 times out of 10,
we
wouldn't go.
spoke about this in the last episode. Had a guy called James Doolan
Right,
on last, and he runs a huge gym over in Bathgate
fabulous, right?
called Higher Level Martial Arts. And
Uh-huh.
I asked him this specific question, what happens when one of these guys turn up at the gym who want to go a bit harder than usual or whatever? And he said, like, the gym pretty much regulates itself because there's always somebody bigger and tougher and better to put you in your place.
Yeah, I was there one night in Rough and Ready gym with this guy. I can't remember what his background was, and he came in and he thought he was Mr. Big Shot.
Hmm.
And, the guys clocked it right away and thought, have that, so we'll give you a bit of it back and see if you like it. He didn't. As soon as he got it back, he realised he was out of his
Yeah.
depth at every level and he didn't come back. So, no, there's always people that regulate it, thankfully, and kind of deal with these people, which is good. I thought I didn't see that happening in my experience personally. Was not just my experience, but other people used to complain about this guy I was telling you about from the Aikido. And the guy kind of pulled up, said, oh, you're rocket. Eventually he got thrown out of it, but yeah, pathetic, really, to be honest, pathetic.
I
It's
can remember.
about, sorry, I was going to say, Andy, to me, it's about, the Royal Marines are very, very good at their advertising campaign. They've got a brilliant one out at the moment
Yeah.
about humility, absolutely brilliant.
Hmm.
And one of the things they say is, the opposite of humility is ego. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
In my line of work, in the infantry, in the army, ego will get you killed.
Right. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So it's about being humble. Don't go about telling people how good you are. Show them how good you are. Don't tell people how hard you are. Show them how hard you are.
That makes
And there's a
perfect
big difference.
sense.
There's a big, big difference. How many
Hmm.
times have you and I heard people bumming about how good they are about this, or how good they are at that, or this person they've battered? No, yeah,
Aye.
it's not about that. The real people don't do that. People who are good at these things don't need to do that. It's about
I
humility.
think it's almost like a cover for their insecurity. That's how I see it.
Yes,
Like,
Andy, it is very much. Most of these people, when you call them out on it, they find out pretty quickly. For
yeah.
all their bravado and shouting and the stances they put on, that when it comes to it, it's nothing more than bravado for them to cover up their own inadequacies.
You
So I
see
think
quite
the humility is important.
you see quite a lot in fight sports. Like they have these press conferences and they have like face-offs and stuff. And if you watch the two fighters, you can see sometimes the guy with the massive ego, but he almost looks scared and he's shouting at the other guy and he's provoking him. And then when they get into the ring or the octagon, he's the person that crumbles under the pressure. Not always, but that's a typical. You see that
Yeah,
pattern.
I'd agree with that. One of the things I always liked about Terence Crawford, you've heard me go on about him a lot, but
Yeah.
I just loved the fact he's a fantastic boxer, fantastic athlete, very humble, but also the fact that he could switch southpaw and orthodox, I thought was great as well. But if you watch him, it doesn't matter if the fight's going really, really bad at that point or he's taking a bad shot, nothing changes him. Nothing
Stoic.
bothers him. He's stoic in that. And there's a guy, a friend of mine who plays, a South African friend of mine who plays cricket for Scotland, Brandon McMullen. And I've trained
Hmm.
with Brandon at cricket. And the thing, when I watch him, I always look at him and go, no matter how bad it's going, he's still smiling.
Hmm.
He still
Hmm.
smiles.
Hmm.
He doesn't let a lot of good fighters, no matter if that part of the fight isn't going their way, they're not
Hmm.
panicking because they're confident in their own ability. They don't have to shout. Yeah,
Yeah.
this bit isn't going quite the way I wanted it, but that's okay.
Hmm.
And to
Hmm.
me, Terence Crawford was in the boxing ring, was a great example of this. You can think of countless people, Andy, I'm sure. But I
Yeah.
just thought Terence Crawford for me was a great example of this level headed calmness. He just, no matter, yeah, I can deal with it. It's all right. Never get too high, never get too low with it, and just
Hmm.
deal with it. And to me, as I keep saying, because I keep saying it, to me, it's a big thing that these guys I got to train with, I'm very grateful to every single one of them, whether it's Barry
Yeah.
or Norrie, Yun Campbell, McFann, Kenny Marshall, any of these people who was with, they were all very humble. There was nobody with an ego there trying to, get one over me or get one over another people.
Yeah.
And that, I thought, really helps you to learn and engage with what's going on.
Of course. And I think those guys as well, by the sounds of it, they were really keen to learn from each other. So they're
Oh, yeah,
open
that
they're
was a big
open to
thing.
listening.
Yeah, that was a big
Exactly.
thing. Yeah, but particularly at that time when we were at UFC
Yeah.
1 or 2, and this, to me, as I say, I'm maybe not explain it very well, but to me, when I was training with these guys,
Hmm.
they were utilising different martial arts and different scenarios to see how it would work. And
Yeah.
that was really the epitome about the original kind of concept of mixed martial arts. If you look
Yeah.
at UFC one,
Hmm.
you're from karate, you're from sumo, whatever it is,
That's
you're a
right.
big Hawaiian wrestler boy,
Yeah.
all these kind of people that were there coming in with the different martial arts, and that's what the mixed martial arts was all about.
Exactly. I think it was a good thing that UFC came about when it did because it's really it exposed a lot of the kind of how could you put it, like a lot of the traditional martial arts who I think did some of the guys did have an ego, but they never necessarily had the skills to back it up. And it forced a lot of these guys to go away and rethink their whole training method and their martial art.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that was a good thing. I think
Yeah,
there's still a big to me there's still a big place for traditional martial arts,
for sure.
and I think the Aikido people, it's not necessarily my kind of thing in terms of the way they do it, etc.
No.
But I get it and it works for people, that's fine. I took out what I felt would work for me, be applicable for me. But I still think what you're saying, Andy, is quite correct because it made
Yeah.
people then reflect to go, well, what I'm teaching here, is that going to work
Yeah.
outside the dojo?
Yeah.
How do I make it more realistic for these people? How do I make it applicable to them?
It brought a real honesty to the martial arts, which I think was lacking at the time.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays there's still a lot of people who train in traditional martial arts, which is a great thing.
Uh-huh.
But I think they're more honest about the applicability of the art form. They don't kid
I hope,
themselves on. They don't say, well, I'm doing this so that I can go and fight in the UFC. If you want to go and fight in the UFC, go to an MMA gym.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I hope it gives them an honesty about the applicability of. I mean,
Yeah.
there's obviously applicable bits of any particular art.
Yes.
It's a solid art they're going to be able to use in a live situation, but they need to understand that not everything they'd be doing in a traditional martial art in the dojo is going to be applicable out in the street,
Yeah.
and that you're going to, as I keep saying about, you don't get attacked in a dojo. It's a training environment. You get attacked in the street, go to your car in a pub, in a club, whatever it is, and you need to be able to utilise elements of your art in that kind of situation. And I think people need to have perhaps sometimes people need to go with a kind of more the kind of the Bruce Lee thing. There's no one way. There's not one way to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And being
Exactly.
open and being like water and blended and all that stuff. And what he said was
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal stuff. But that's the approach. That's kind of the approach I took was just be open to it and what works for me. And what works for
Ex
me, Andy, might not necessarily work for you, and vice versa. Your grind game would be really good. I would have a clue. I don't
oh,
know, go to get. I would rather,
it,
break, fall, and get back up.
I can assure you it's not that good.
It'd be better than mine. It'd be better than mine because that's never been me. But
Aye.
that would work for you, because it wouldn't really work for me. That's why I concentrated on these other things that I felt were
Exactly.
applicable to me. Yeah,
There's definitely things that suit people better. Like some people take to grappling like a duck to water. It's just in their system. Some people prefer striking, and it's just a case of finding which one suits you, sinking
yeah,
yourself in it, learning a wee bit of the other so that you're not vulnerable in any one
yeah.
area.
Yeah, I did that. I did a bit of that with you, and with the
Hmm.
combat service wrestling stuff that we're doing. But I mean, it
Yeah,
was never really me, to be honest. And I
no.
wouldn't remember any of it now. I'm much more comfortable with kind of stand-up stuff, or
Aye.
karate stuff, or
Y-
bits of Systema.
And like you've got to enjoy what you're doing as well. So if it doesn't chime with you and you're
Yeah,
forcing yourself to go, it's never going to last anyway. So you've
yeah,
got to
that's
do
right.
something that you actually
Yeah.
enjoy.
One of the one of the
100%.
one of the regrets I have, funnily enough, is
Yeah.
I would love to have learned a lot more. I mean, I've done bits of Kali. I'd love to have really learned a lot more Kali
Right.
because I just love the applicability of the weapon system to the open hand and vice versa. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I could do bits of that, but I was never able up here to really find somebody of quality or people of quality that
Aye.
were doing the Kali that, and I could go along on a regular basis and
It's,
developing that.
it's not that common, I don't think, here.
No, no.
The one person that I've heard consistently come up in that conversation is Rick Young. I think
Well,
he
Rick Young,
did,
of course, was, yeah, but I've
but
trained with Rick Young.
he's through in Edinburgh.
Remember, yeah. So Rick Young was obviously one. I
Yeah,
was thinking more kind of through this way.
of course. Aye,
There's
I
isn't,
don't.
yeah, there's not really been. I mean, the people were there was these guys. You probably know more about this than me, and you think the Dog Brothers.
Oh, the Dog Brothers. Aye, I
I
used
don't
to
know much
love
about.
watching their stuff.
I don't know
Aye,
much about, but they were doing bits of Cali, I'm sure.
they were in California, I believe, and they were kind of like the early Jeet Kune Do guys, and they were doing Cali,
They were
and
doing
then
Cali.
their whole thing was just like you take a weapon. Now it could be it could be a stick, it could be a length of like a rope, it could be
Yeah,
anything really, and you turn up to the arena they've made, and you just basically go at it. They set a timer. It's white. Have you ever seen any Dog Brothers stuff?
No, I
Let,
think
let,
the
let,
reason,
let me send you some of that.
right,
That's you'll
okay,
love it.
I came across it because the guys, I'm sure Chris Vance,
Hmm.
did the Dog Brothers have somebody, did they have somebody affiliated in Glasgow to do with them?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't
I
think
mean, next
so.
time I'm asking Chris, there was something from Glasgow that they used to, it was something to do, they were linked in with something to do with the dog or something like that.
It's
Uh,
possible. It's
I
possible.
don't know, I can't remember. But anyway, what I'm saying is that for some of these arts, it's the same with the Kyokushin, there was nobody
Hmm.
in the West Coast of Scotland to train with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Kali,
that's right.
and the Schema, Sila, there was nothing like that. And of
No,
course,
no.
again with the Systema,
Hmm.
it was me who was bringing Alexander over, so there was nothing really about here to get.
There's
So
nothing
I've
along.
got a regret in a sense that I wasn't, particularly the Kali. That's the one I think the most that I regret not getting enough of over the years.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
I think you're right. The thing for you to do, like, I know probably like would have been for like you maybe felt as if you didn't know enough, but was just to like start a
Yeah,
club with like two or three people, bring people over for seminars, and then eventually build your own skills base by traveling or bringing people over. That would have been the move back then. But
yeah, probably. I mean, I brought people. I mean, I brought Alexander over a number of times, but I was never in my head to then kind of take that forward and run a kind of system of club. I
yeah,
kind
it
of
takes
looked into
time
it,
and
and I kind of, I'm still in contact with Alexander, and I kind of kept training with him under him. And going forward that the same way I could have, if I wanted, I could have developed
mhm.
under Chris Vance and Brendan with the Krav Maga or like that. But I was never really
There's
my ambition to do that.
aye,
Um, yeah, you're right. That would have been the perfect opportunity, probably with Alexander, really,
yeah,
because it's such a niche thing as well. Nobody else was doing it. And this was one of the main bananas, if you like,
hmm,
from from Ukraine. He's a Russian Ukraine that was doing that. He was the top kind of guy in a sense, and I was bringing him over to regularly to do not just things, one-on-one things with me a couple of
aye,
days. Him and me and Kenny, Kenny Marshall trained with him one-on-one
uh-huh,
in the Durant Centre. But I never really then thought, right, okay, why don't I develop that bit more? Why don't I get myself under his wing and
hmm,
progress myself? I think partly, Andy, because I still had that, right, there's bits of that I really like, I can use. What
yeah,
else is there? Yeah, what else can I use? What else can I put in the armory?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly,
what else can I experience? But
yeah, for sure,
The Cali I do regret not getting enough of.
yeah.
I thought brilliant.
There's like a
Great
whole
development.
there's a whole bunch of martial arts that I would like to try still to this day. The one that sticks out would be capoeira. I would love to
Oh,
try
capoeira's the
that.
Brazilian stuff. Yeah.
But I don't know if I've left it too late in the
No,
day.
I think you must have seen that very thing. Well, it's ancient now. It was from a long time ago when people in this country were going on about capoeira, and there was a
Aye.
capoeira guy. There must have been about 150 people around this kind of area
Hmm.
watching. I can't remember who the guy was going to take on. So the capoeira guys did all his capoeira stuff. And as he comes up from one of his kind of
I've seen
he's going,
that.
oh,
The guy
yeah,
just drops him right. I've
it
seen
just
that. That's a
drops it. Yeah,
classic.
just,
Aye, aye,
yeah. So I mean, I think from agility point of view, I think there's things you can
aye.
get out of capoeira. Absolutely. I mean,
Oh yeah,
in terms of movement and agility, fabulous and integrating bits of that into other things you were doing. I think would really well. So capoeira. What else, Andy, would you be into? You would like to have a
well,
go at?
the capoeira is a standout one, and I think more just for fun, no for learning how to fight. I think
Mm-hmm.
jiu-jitsu would always be my go-to. Jiu-jitsu and Thai
Uh-huh.
boxing, or maybe
Uh-huh.
even boxing, would be the kind of go-to for fighting. Capoeira I would just like to have tried from a kind of like, I think it looks like a dance. It looks really kind of rhythmic, and it looks like good fun.
Which means I would be
Uh,
useless at it if it's like a dance.
right. Um,
I
but
have
other
to tell
things
you,
like
I can't dance.
see because I've never done it, and purely because I've never done it, I would like to go and experience an Aikido class.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I mean, if you want to ever go along and see what one's like, I can.
Yeah.
I can arrange that for you because that's
Aye,
what I'm
for
trying to
sure.
get in
I
mind.
would like to go
Even
and
just to
try
go
it.
along and just see what
Definitely.
a traditional Aikido class is like.
And just
It's
keep an I
very
would
different.
keep an open mind, obviously. Like it again, I think having done grappling art like jiu-jitsu, I don't expect to go in and learn like something that's going to be applicable in BJJ or
Yeah,
anything like that. But
yeah.
just to keep an open mind and try it.
I think well, if you ever want to do that, I could speak to Viking. We could go along. You could have a go to it. An interesting thing to do. The weapons is good fun to do. The bokken, the Joe, the
All
Iron.
right.
Love doing that. Love doing that. And that's the good thing about those is the weapons thing you can a lot of
Do it at
that you
home.
can practice on yourself.
Yeah.
You don't need to have somebody with you.
Well, something like that would probably be ideal. That would be better because at the moment, like, I don't have any time. And see
Yeah,
the thought of like kind of giving up my time to go to an Aikido class, it's a tough sell.
yeah,
Because if
yeah,
I had
yeah.
extra time, I would probably just go back to jiu-jitsu.
There's something you
Like,
really like. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
so,
Try doing
some,
this. Yeah.
something I've got a wee bit of traction in. So, but I would like to learn some weapon stuff. I like the idea of nunchucks as well. I've got some foam nunchucks, but I've not really used them.
Oh, I've got a rule set that I got given to me
Really?
by yeah, there's a bit of a story to this actually. Again, I
Yeah.
suppose it links in with interest in martial arts. When I was a very young kid, this was all those years ago. My aunt used to live in a hotel in London up the Edgware Road.
Hmm.
There's a pub and it used to have about 10 rooms or something. And obviously there's people who'd come and work there for season. There was a guy from New Zealand who was a martial arts guy, and he was a nunchucks man.
Right.
And I was only about 10 at the time. I remember this very clearly. And I went out for a little walk round the kind of area. And this strange dude started following me. I clocked this guy following me. And I thought, this isn't good. So I got back to the thing and I met him and he said, you okay? Because I must have looked a bit shaky. He said, no, I'm just guy. Right.
Hmm.
And he gets his nunchucks and goes away out into the street looking for this dude. And he gave me a set.
Aye.
He gave me a set.
Are they
And I had to
metal
make
or wooden?
no, they were wooden.
Ah,
Wooden
cool,
nunchucks,
cool.
yeah, yeah. Got them somewhere, I don't know where they are, but
I
they're
mean,
ancient.
I would need to get good on the foam nunchucks before I would progress onto the wooden ones, because the amount of times I hit my head with the foam ones, I couldn't afford to, like, I would be black and blue,
You'll be
man.
black and blue, yeah. Well, yeah, the nunchucks things are interesting. I did a
Aye.
little bit of it. I did a little bit of it with him, but I wouldn't say people have done nunchuck. I only did little bits with him. He would show me when I was down there. But the weapon, yeah, the bokken and the Joe. In fact, here's
Hmm.
an interesting one for you. So I had a guy that he was training in what was Cali training in? God, I think it might have been it was MMA stuff he was doing,
Hmm.
and he wanted to come and talk to me about the kind of range of martial arts stuff I'd done. And I said to him, I wondered about the weapons stuff. And he didn't really know much about the weapons thing. And I said, right, okay. When I took out the Joe that I had, the wooden Joe, and I took out my katana, and I said, right, Khaled, I said, your choice. What would you have? And of course, immediately goes for the katana. And I went, wrong choice, brother. And he just looked at me and said, what, you kidding me? I've got a sword here. I said, he said, you've got a bit of wood. I said, but when I took my bit of wood up and I went into my stance, and I went, what? I said, look at the range of
The
that box to
range, that's what I
start.
was thinking right away, right
The
away.
range right away and the maneuverability of this thing. If you give me a choice between the katana and the Joe, I'm going for the Joe every time because I know the length of the range that it's got. So I really used to enjoy doing the Joe and the bokken, just
Uh-huh.
and the idol with the swordsmanship, very precise. I just loved it. I was fascinated by the historiography of it all, really,
Yes.
from the Japanese, because and again, it was much more applicable. You could understand what was happening. So some of the moves you were doing from the seated position, traditional seated position, because that's the way they were in
Okay,
Japan at
right,
that
I'm
time.
with you,
Yeah.
aye. Yeah, yeah.
So the strike you would come up and do the strike, and so what you're doing is as you're drawing the sword, that's your first strike. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're rising up from your seated position, so you can understand why you were doing that because
Yeah.
there was a basis for you knew that's
Hmm.
where in Japan that's the way people were seated, and that's how
Right.
they would start the engagement from because somebody would attack you while you were seated, and you could engage them from that. So I find that a lot easier to get my head around.
Hmm. No, it's really cool. Look, I like all the idea of the weapons training, but again, it's just time. It's finding the time to because that is a big commitment.
I think for me, once I've kind of got a kind of so what I used to do, so once I kind of got a basic grounding and the kind of Joe and the bulky, I was then able to practice. There's techniques you could practice yourself, yeah,
Yeah.
and it makes sense, yeah. But
Hmm.
you can work it, so you don't have to have something you can fit it into your own kind of timeline. And then Kenny and I, as I say, Kenny Marshall and I would get together and we just have a kind of one-to-one session. Sometimes we would we used to do mad things. We used to sometimes hire a room in a sports centre for 10 or something for a couple of hours and do it in there, just the two of us.
Aye.
Or the other thing we used to do was outside
Hmm.
and we go
Hmm.
down to Stratty Park like first thing on a Sunday morning.
Get
People think,
arrested
what
for that.
these two lunatics, they just came along. please come along one day, actually. And they went, oh, that's pretty
Aye.
cool, guys.
Oh,
Yeah, cool.
they were cool
They're
with
totally
it.
fine. Yeah, they got it. They understood they were just practicing martial arts. They were in control. There was nobody else there.
How long ago was that?
Oh, how long was that now? So, probably about 8 or 9 years ago, maybe.
I suspect they would be a bit more nervous about
Stringent
it.
now. Yeah,
Aye, I
probably.
think so. They'd be a bit more nervous now.
Yeah, yeah, they
Uh,
probably would. But it was, I think as well, depends what corporate you get as well.
exactly,
We were
that's
maybe
it.
just lucky that they were a bit of an open mind about it. We get it, we understand what you do. Is this, have I rambled on too much for you, Andy?
No, do you know what? That was great, but like I will
You sure?
need to
I
because
need to go as well, yeah.
I'm working tomorrow as well.
Ah, ha,
But
ha, ha.
you're
Listen,
not,
I'm not bad. A busy week last week because obviously I was
eh?
in with you on Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
Thursday, I was with a local charity doing child protection advice and training for them.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then Friday, I was doing an army talk, so I was kind of flat out.
So you were kept going the
Yeah, I
full.
was kept going the whole kind of week. My daughter was down staying with us
Aye,
this weekend as well, so it's been pretty busy. But no, hopefully it wasn't too much of a rambling spiel. What I was trying to do was trying to do justice to all the people who kind of fed in and give an idea of the range of experiences I've had. I'm not
and
saying I
that's
was
what I
any good at
like.
any of them. Yeah.
That's what we're all about with this. It's like I'm trying to shine a light on some of the guys who were like really prominent back in their day that have maybe been forgotten about.
I mean, people are,
That's
right young. I mean, I'd like to think people aren't from right young. I mean, Andy Hoog and people like that, John
yeah.
Wade Parr. I mean, I'd like people knowledgeable. I mean, Guy Ramsey.
hmm
Think that people should like to think people know about Norrie McKenzie. Kickboxing people would certainly know about Barry.
I'm going to reach out to some of these people and try and have conversations like this.
Well, there's no problem. I can get him, and I mentioned it to Barry, and he said he'd be quite happy to do something. Yeah,
Fantastic.
and if you
That'd be
wanted, to get hold of Norrie, I mean, contact
uh-huh.
with Norrie still, Norrie
Thanks.
McKenzie. And if you want
Aye.
Yun Campbell or any, just
hmm
let me know who you want, and I'll get in contact with them.
Oh, I do appreciate
Um,
that, man.
no problem.
That's
I mean,
brilliant.
now you want to be a really interesting one for you to get Alexander from the
Aye.
Systema.
Does he speak good English?
Oh yeah, his
Aye.
English is pretty good. Yeah, he'll
Uh,
be able to. It'd be interesting for you and your people, your listeners of yours, to hear more
mhm.
about the fluidity of movement that they're into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
but
need
yeah,
to
you can let me
do
know. Yeah,
I would need to do some research first myself as well on
yeah.
Systema so that I've got some talking points, but I can do that. That's no
Just
problem.
an idea, but anybody you want, any of these people I've talked about, I'm still in contact with. I
Yeah.
mean, you're in contact with some of the people I use, like Duncan James, who was at school with you.
Exactly. That was a great episode. He's a
That'd have been
fascinating
brilliant. He's a
guy.
lovely guy,
He's
great
an
guy.
actor now as well.
Yeah, yeah. He was Duncan Campbell when I knew him. Yeah.
I think
He was
that's what he
Duncan Campbell.
mentioned. That
Yeah, he was Uncle Campbell. Now,
just
he was a
an
smashing bloke at
absolute
school,
cracking guy.
a great guy. But yeah, any of these guys that I mentioned, I'm still in contact with them, so there'll be no problem. I mean,
Fantastic, Les.
I mean, it'd be good to get Brendan on talking
hmm
about his religious moment of I've now discovered what my karate black belt's for, to use it as a weapon in Krav Maga, So yeah,
Aye.
anybody, but listen, hopefully that wasn't too edit as you see fit.
No, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to come and
That's
speak to
all.
me as well, and we'll
Thanks for having
continue
me
the
on.
conversation at work. I feel like
Yeah,
every time we bump into each other, it always somehow ends up in martial arts anyway.
yeah, well, we've got that in common, we've got that kind of
Exactly.
thing. But listen, hopefully it's a use to you, and I'll not be afraid of
Fantastic.
what you edit out. Just go with what you think's valuable, and the rest in it. Yeah.
I want to edit. The only part that I tend to edit is the very end. Sorry, the end bit in the beginning. That's the only two bits that I clip, and everything else I just keep in, unless you tell me there's something that you've spoken about that you
No,
don't want shared. But everything
no,
else
there's
I'll keep
nothing. I
in there.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't share it. I was trying to get in the kind of range of things in the
I and
journey.
I know like you've had like a huge like extensive experience in the military, but I didn't want to push on that kind of topic. Sometimes that can be a sensitive subject. I don't know, so I thought I would keep it to
Yeah, no, I
martial
think
arts.
keep it martial arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind telling you off camera about army stuff.
Aye.
I wouldn't do it to elsewhere. Is
No,
that right,
I
Andy?
really appreciate that, man.
No
Right,
problem. Listen,
listen,
thank you.
I'll see you on Wednesday. Eh?
See you Wednesday. Yeah, have a good day tomorrow.
Much appreciated. I
Right, take
certainly
care,
will.
Andy.
Cheers, dude. Bye
Good
bye.
cheers.